Hi guys, we're back here for the Property Sisters YouTube channel with Eva Long, heritage consultant, and her lovely dog as well, Monty. We just come back for part two of, I think it's all to do with don't be scared about heritage buildings.
Yes. Well, a little bit scared.
To only just be a little tiny
scared.
bit scared.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to get down and a bit dirty with the detail now about heritage, just kind of tips and tricks and a few other bits and pieces that developers like me can take away and think about. So, you know, so first of all, I think the question is, just to lead up before we get to the tips and tricks, what requires listed building consent?
Okay, so not everything requires a listed building consent. So if you are repairing something like for like, it doesn't require listed building consent.
Does that mean I can just go in and do it? And
Yes.
I don't need to tell anyone?
Yes, however, now this is where it all becomes a bit grey. So for example, if you've got, say, a little patch of brickwork that needs repointing, in lime, because that matches a historic line, you can go for it. But if we're talking about repointing the whole facade, say, then they would want listed building consent because it's a big area. They want to be sure that your technique is right. There's no machine cutting out a joint. It's all hand done. You've got the right mixture of lime, the right pointing technique, the right look. So they probably require listed building consent. Now, because it is quite grey, it's definitely not black and white. There is a certificate that you can apply for. It's called Certificate of Lawfulness, and that, so you send that off to the council. You say what you want to do, and they will then tell you categorically, yes, it requires listed building consent, or no, it doesn't. And that can kind of, make things a bit clearer.
Sorry, I've got your dog trying to jump up on me.
But so things that require listed building consent. So anything that affects the character or the special architectural historic interest of that property needs listed building consent. So for example, if you want to replace windows, they require listed building consent. They will never agree to you replacing single glazed with double glazed or single glazed traditional windows with plastic. They basically want you to replace it like for like. You need listed building consent for taking down walls, removing historic fabric, for extending, for dividing rooms up, new bathrooms, new kitchens. Most changes that aren't like-for-like repair, you need listed building consent for.
Question for you, Eve, just before we dive straight into these kind of little tips.
Yeah.
So, with the advent of COVID and people working from home and less offices, sometimes the only solution for these listed buildings, on top of shops, etc., the only thing that they're good for is residential, nothing else.
Yes. And so if that's the only viable use, and you can prove that's the only viable use, and they just want justification to these changes. So they know that there's going to be some changes, and they just want you to justify as to why that's not damaging the special interest of that building. What they hate to see is the removal of historic fabric. So adding to things is a lot better than removing historic fabric. So if you want to change the use of this building, and you're doing it in a more sensitive way, so you're adding maybe a stud wall as opposed to taking historic fabric out, then that's more acceptable.
And so how would you divide a room? Is it, because obviously with our planning that we put through, that kept just batting up back to us saying, you can't do it.
So dividing rooms, it's back to every listed building is unique, and so they can't, this advice that I'm giving, you can't, it's not broad brush. You can't apply it to every building.
Yeah.
But back to getting that expert who can tell you the rooms that are more likely to be able to be divided and the rooms that really going to have problems dividing.
Yeah.
So, for example, in the front of the property, you don't really want to divide it and have bathrooms at the front of the property, because where are your services going to go? You can't run pipes on the facade of the building. So, you know, extra bathrooms and things like that should be where existing services are or towards the back of the building. So, you know, as long as you know what these constraints are, then you can be creative and try and work around that building. But dividing rooms, it's back to what the original plan is. You know, if the original plan has been completely obliterated even, then actually you can justify the fact that you're possibly putting back the plan as to how it used to be. But if you've got a wonderful original plan, say on the first floor, so the front two rooms may be, you know, beautiful Georgian rooms, nice and grand. It's very unlikely that they'll be able to be divided up. However, the rooms to the back of the building that are less important possibly could be. And so there's always that justification and that sort of
a bit of negotiation,
a bit of balance. You know,
Yeah.
look, we're actually replacing this UPVC window with a sash, but we would like to divide this room up here. You know, so there's a give and take.
Can you tell us about ceilings and running services through ceilings and cornicing and the issues around that?
So, you know, what makes, we're developers and we want our end product to be beautiful, to be visually beautiful, and it also means that it's, you know, it's a higher value as well, and we get better rent. So, you know, Urban Splash is a fantastic example of this. They really celebrate the architectural features of houses, and it makes them unique, and it gives them this amazing wow factor which adds value. So that's the kind of approach that you need to take with listed buildings. So if you've got a room with beautiful cornicing, beautiful skirting boards, logically, why would you want to make it into an 80s box? You know, it's no different from another normal house. So it's kind of really celebrating those features. What they don't like to see is, you know, your false ceilings covering up all these beautiful details. However, if you've got a house with lots of these features, then, and there's room, there could be one room possibly at the back that could have that ceiling where you could run services through. So it's just, again, it's a balancing act, and it's all down to that